And greetings. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV radio and podcast. I am Steve Deace alongside Todd Erzen and Aaron McIntyre. New week here on the show. We have kind of a quirky week for you. Aaron and I are doing some traveling and have some other business we need to attend to this week. So we are with you for a live program today, or an original show if you're listening via podcast later. Tomorrow, no show. Wednesday, we will have an evergreen. So that won't be live, but it will be an original program for you on Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday, we'll be back live, but I will be in Dallas. I am going to speak at the Vitae Foundation's Pro-Life Banquet in Dallas on Thursday evening. There are details for that at vitaefoundation.org if you would like to attend, vitaefoundation.org. And if you do, please feel free to come by and say hello. So I'll be in Dallas most of this week, and we'll have live shows for you here today, Thursday, and Friday. And then also we will have an evergreen on Wednesday. So wanted to give you some heads up on that. So we'll have a bit of a quirky schedule here coming up. Actually, the next couple of weeks, I've got some speaking and traveling I need to be doing. And so the schedule here may be a little quirky for the next couple of weeks, in fact. We have a big announcement to make here momentarily on the show. Something I'm very, very excited about. And it's something that several of you have actually asked for. And you're going to get your wish, and we'll tell you about it here in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about our friends over at Birch Gold. I saw Steve Cortez this morning tweeting out that we have the worst market for home buying in America since 2008. Another trend line. We've been following these trend lines. And of course, if you know anything about housing markets and our economy, you don't want any trend line that compares with 2008. That's very, very bad news. And Americans have a lot of wealth stored up in homes that they can't sell to people like Todd, who'd like to buy them from you and move his family closer to school, but can't afford 8% mortgage rates. When I refied 3 years ago for 3.5. I mean, that's incredible, man. I mean, that's absolutely incredible.
2 years ago, my mortgage rate was just over 3.
There you go. Folks, now we have the G20 nations are announcing plans to impose digital currencies and digital IDs upon their respective populations. That's central bank digital currencies. What are those? Basically, they're the mark. I mean, I could give you a more technical definition, but essentially it's a proto version of a mark, of something that without it you could not buy or sell, and governments would be able to control what you were buying and what you were selling and how often. Now is the time to take more control over your finances. Concerned Americans need to diversify into physical gold, and you can do so with the help of our friends over at the Birch Gold Group. If you want a physical asset held in a tax-sheltered retirement account, call Birch Gold right now. Text Steve 989-898. Text Steve to 989-898. They'll send you a free info kit on gold. That's about the easiest way to begin the process of becoming a Birch Gold customer. So if you have an IRA, a 401k with a previous employer that's just gathering dust, Birch Gold can help you convert it into an IRA with gold. Text Steve to 989-898 and get that free info kit by texting Steve to 989-898. Well, there have been numerous requests for this in my inbox. We haven't talked about it very much publicly because we were unsure of when we were going to be able to unveil this to you and make it available to you. But we found out late last week we were able to negotiate around Let's Go Brandon and other nefarious forces that do not want to make such content available to you. And we are able to present it to you today. I'm talking about this.
For years without measure, that's all there ever was. Heaven and hell. Armed enemy camps in complete opposition. That is until you were created.
He's called the Great Red Dragon. He's called the Devil, which simply means adversary. He's called Satan. He's called also the one who deceives the whole world, the ancient serpent.
And we began our forever mission to destroy you. He made you in his image, but we remade you in ours.
When I think that my kids will touch their phone 2,000 times today, they'll see 10,000 media messages in one day, so many of them so draped with lies. Behind all those lies, we see that Satan is the one who deceives the whole world.
Our plan is to hurt him, to punish him, and we do that by destroying what he loves, which is you.
We want to bring him out of the shadows. We want him to be known and to be seen so people see him for whom he really is. And then we're going to wreck your worldview a little bit as well, but in order to feel more like a victor instead of a victim. And so we're going to equip you to do that. Everything you've ever wanted to know about the enemy, and more importantly, how weak of an opponent he actually is. Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. This launches today. Yes, not much of a lead up. But Todd, we didn't have much of a lead up when we launched Fauci and Bargain either, because we weren't sure how we were going to get that out and how soon. And it ended up being a #1 bestseller. It did okay. All right. So this launches today, just in time for this particular time of year. Not to mention, and we didn't know this when we began working on this project back in June, that it would be available for a period of time when we are watching spiritual warfare literally play out in our headlines. So, Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. It's a 6-week Bible study anchored by myself and our good friend Dr. Jeremiah Johnston, Oxford-trained theologian at Prestonwood Baptist in Dallas. He's actually going to join us on the show later today to give us a preview of this curriculum, and we're extremely excited about it. It's a 6-week Bible study. You go to Amazon, you purchase the book, and inside each book is its own code that will give you the opportunity to go to the website, nefariousbiblestudy.com, and download the videos that go along, or stream the videos that go alongside with each and every lesson. Just as much of the movie Nefarious is 2 men in a detention center, so is much of the discussion here. Except instead of an atheist talking to a demon, now we have a Christian talking to a theologian. And this is an opportunity to pierce the veil here and pierce the darkness and take a look into the unseen realm and learn how to walk in victory. For too long, I think the church in the West has either been too obsessed with this to the point that it's just lost physical mooring with the world, or just completely ignorant of it and acting as if this realm does not exist. Spiritual warfare does not exist. We want to take advantage of both of those. We think, unfortunate and misguided teachings, and alert you to the unseen realm and alert you to the spiritual warfare that you see taking place, and is taking place in your headlines right now as we speak. But to remember, ultimately, God is God and no one else is. And that we walk in victory through Him, and we do not need to fear. That's why the Bible says 365 times, one for every day of the year. What a coincidence. Fear not. So you want to pick this up right now for your small group, and you can get it at Amazon right now. It's called Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. We're very proud of it. You're going to be very impressed with the production value here, both within the book and the videos that we produced. We've been making this all summer long. We were unsure how soon we'd be able to get it out. That's why we haven't done a lot of promotion of it. And you know what? We're ready. We're ready to launch today. All right. So go to Amazon and get your copy right now of Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. Get one for every member of your small group. You can start this 6-week Bible study as soon as this week, and there will be a code in each book that will allow you to get access to the videos on the Nefarious Bible Study website. Again, it's called Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. And with that, coming up on the show today, Jordan Schachtel is going to join us. He's been a longtime contributor to this show when it comes to national security matters. He's going to join us about what is going on right now, the latest between Israel, Hamas, and perhaps even Hezbollah. So we'll get to that with Jordan later today. I also mentioned that we're going to be talking with Dr. Jeremiah Johnston later today to preview the Nefarious Bible Study a little bit more in depth. Bob Vander Plaats will join us at the bottom of this hour, but before, he's supposed to be going to Israel next week, by the way. We'll see if that's still on. But before we get to all of that, here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by the ground offensive. Israeli Defense Force soldiers have slowly entered Gaza proper as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed on Sunday to, quote, demolish Hamas. The death toll from the terror attacks and ensuing conflict now sits at around 1,400, including 29 Americans. The number of hostages kept by Hamas is believed to be around 200. As the U.S. State Department drags its feet on getting Americans stranded in Israel out and then making them pay for it when they actually do, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis late last week issued an executive order allowing state resources to be used to bring home stranded Floridians and other Americans. The first evacuation flight of nearly 300 people landed in Tampa last night, and DeSantis was there to greet them. Here's how NBC News reported this morning.
And look, most major airlines canceled flights in and out of Israel after those Hamas attacks. But here in Florida, the DeSantis administration launched evacuation operations. And last night, we met with folks who finally made it home, and we heard their stories.
Today, more than 270 Americans evacuated from Israel are back in the United States, arriving in Tampa overnight on the first flight to return to the U.S. in an operation organized by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
It's very emotional to be here, to be away from all of that.
91 of the passengers arriving last night were children.
These kids are having to dodge rockets. These kids are having terrorists come after them. Not the way this world should be.
For many, the homecoming is joyful, but the heartache isn't over. Liat Paradise was in Tel Aviv when the war began.
So much. It's so much heartbreak to leave everything so suddenly and everything you love. And I haven't gotten to say goodbye to a single person. I'm worried. You know, all of my friends are out there serving. My cousin is on the front lines in Gaza, you know.
And Hoda, as we heard from those folks, a lot of Americans still stranded there, having a hard time making their way out of the country. Now, this operation was all part of an executive order allowing the state of Florida to carry this out. It was part of a partnership with Project Dynamo, which is a veteran-led search and rescue nonprofit. More flights are expected today and throughout the week, bringing Americans home to the state.
Additionally, DeSantis is currently, to my knowledge, the only GOP candidate to flat out reject the notion that the U.S. should bring in refugees from Gaza. Here he is defending his case in front of a hostile interviewer on CBS News yesterday.
How can you paint with such a broad brush to say 2.3 million people are anti-Semitic?
Well, first of all, my position is very clear. Those Gaza refugees, Palestinian Arabs, should go to Arab countries. The U.S. should not be absorbing any of those. I think the culture, so they elected Hamas. Let's just be clear about that. Not everyone's a member of Hamas. Most probably aren't, but they did elect Hamas.
In 2006, and then the military occupation happened after that, where they went in and haven't allowed elections since 2007. So in 2006, there was an election.
But there was a lot of celebrating of those attacks in the Gaza Strip by a lot of those folks who were not Hamas. But if you look at their education system, this has been an issue for a long time. They teach kids to hate Jews. The textbooks do not have Israel even on the map. They prepare very young kids to commit terrorist attacks. So I think it's a toxic culture, and I think if we were to import large numbers of those to the United States, I think it would increase anti-Semitism in this country, and I think it would increase anti-Americanism in this country. And that's something, after seeing those demonstrations pop up in our country, just with blood still flowing amongst Israeli citizens over the weekend, you had people taking to the streets cheering on the barbarism of Hamas in our own country. That was a chilling thing to see, and I don't think that that's something that we should ever think is acceptable.
No, but no one's talking about getting Gazan refugees here right now.
Moving on, after apparently organizing a rebellion to Jim Jordan's bid to become the House Speaker, Alabama Congressman Mike Rogers this morning said he talked with Jordan and is now on board with his candidacy. A vote on the House floor to make Jim Jordan Speaker is expected to happen tomorrow. On the prospect of adding another war to our nation's debt, here's what Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen had to say.
Can America, can the West afford another war at this time?
I think the answer is absolutely. America can certainly afford to stand with Israel and to support Israel's military needs.
And now this for some whiplash. Here's this tweet from the Washington Post. A 21-year-old University of Wyoming student was looking for community. Instead, she faced death threats, a federal lawsuit, and an attempt to kick her out. The actual story here is that an overweight heterosexual dude started cross-dressing and used a new sorority rule that allows males to join the sorority if they claim to be trans or get into the sorority, so he could ostensibly be around naked young women. Not the plot of an 80s or 90s rom-com. He actually tried that, and it blew up in his face, and now the Washington Post is making him into a martyr. In Wisconsin, this is Democrat State Representative Dave Considine during a debate on a bill that bans boys from playing in girls' sports.
And my granddaughter, who's playing college sports, I asked her about this when we had this 2 years ago, and she said, you know what? If a trans woman was competing against me in the sport, then that just means if that person's better than me, I need to work harder.
And finally, the Hegelian dialectic in 45 seconds.
I come to you today as a transgender woman, as a queer woman, as a member of the LGBTQ community, and I come to you today to denounce the duplicitous and divisive propaganda spread by the occupation regime. Them tell it I should support the occupation. I should support the settlers. I should support the apartheid regime, and I should oppose the resistance of Palestinians. And why? Because of the allegedly LGBTQ-friendly policies of the Zionist government and the supposed enmity of Muslims and the Palestinian people. But I am here to tell you that is a bald-faced lie.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Like the administrative assistants wearing hijabs, working in the Hamas corporate offices in underground bunkers. If they were, so we're talking like, 120-pound women. 135 if you count the garb. Kind of like Fletch, 6'9" with afro. So they're about $120.
And the C4 belt they're wearing?
Yeah, it's $135 if you count the garb that they're required to wear in the offices there. They would literally walk into that event and slit the throats of everybody there for Allah without even thinking twice about it. Just slit all their throats. Right as they were talking and praising them and taking their side, they'd slit every single one of their throats if they could. And that, folks, when the thesis and the antithesis merge into one narrative, that is the Hegelian dialectic. Aaron's montage is brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical. They want to make sure with their new product that you've got a backup of your existing meds like they did with their first product, the Jace case. They wanted to make sure you had a backup of venerable meds that could be declared dangerous after winning Nobel Prizes just when you may or may not need them the most. They wanted to make sure that didn't happen with doxycycline or amoxicillin. Well, now they want to make sure it doesn't happen with your meds. So make sure you get a 12-month backup of the meds you need. Everything from diabetes to heart health, blood pressure, mental health, and more when you go to jacemedical.com. J-A-S-E for jacemedical.com. Enter the code DACE at checkout for a discount on your order. That's jacemedical.com. Enter the code DACE at checkout for a discount on your order at jacemedical.com. So let us get to what is inside of Aaron's montage today. And I just want to say this. I never doubted that I made the right decision to endorse Ron DeSantis. But the way he has risen to the occasion here in the last week, when others have gone silent, you have Nikki Haley out there arguing to take in all the refugees. They're not going to go to Nikki Haley's house, of course. Others have stumbled. That's Biden. Well, day that ends in Y. Others have frankly just been plain stupid. Trump choosing to grind an axe with Bibi Netanyahu while they're presiding over the deadliest day in Israel since the Holocaust. And since Israel was established after the Holocaust, you get the picture. The way that he has risen to the occasion here has only confirmed it. I had a few of you, not many, email me over the weekend. Got to get off the DeSantis. No, I'm not going to get off. In fact, I'm going to quadruple down. Because it's very obvious he's even more ready to be president for such a time as this than I originally thought that he was. And my expectations are already pretty high. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stuck my neck out. He is the only one saying no to importing more people who hate America into the country. Standing there on hostile media, refusing to take the premise of their question, rejecting it. Not only holding serve, returning it, going on offense. Remember, I told you last week, since 9/11, this country, ours, has imported 2.3 million people from countries dominated by Islam. 2.3 million. That would be the 36th largest state in the union by population. That would be more people than live in New Hampshire, the first in the nation primary state. Let's say, thorough vetting, and we have a 99% hit rate. Think we're doing thorough vetting?
No.
Think if we did, it'd be possible to have a 99% hit rate? No. But let's say we did, both. 1% of 2.3 million would mean there are still more than 23,000 would-be sleeper cells of terrorists just stationed all over the country. Let's say we have a 99.999% hit rate. That would mean 2,300 of them. How many pulled off the worst terrorist attack in American history, the deadliest day on American soil since Pearl Harbor?
About 20.
Yes. What could 2,300 do? So no, we're not taking them in. And one man is saying this. One man is. If your guy's not or your gal's not, that's not my problem. That's a them problem. Go to them and ask them why they're quiet. Silence. These Arab countries professing their love for the Palestinians, here's your chance. I don't know what the Quranic equivalent to by their fruit you will know them. But I do know in your Quran that alms and service to the poor and destitute among the Muslim population is one of the 5 pillars of your faith. And yet Egypt closes its border. Why? Jordan closes its border. Why? These are your people. They're your responsibility. Own it. Not ours. We're not taking on your responsibilities anymore. And then taking on your tragedies and importing your filth. No, we're not doing that. One guy is saying this. One, Ron DeSantis. One guy is chartering planes, bringing nearly 300 people home, including almost 100 children. When you and I were kids, Todd, it took 444 days to bring 66 hostages home from Iran, from the Middle East.
Yes.
444 days. People don't remember that Carter tried to launch a rescue mission of those hostages. Remember that. He's not even the president. He's a governor of a state. And he brought home 5 times that in a week. Less than a week. What's Trump doing? I know he can charter some planes. He owns one. Can't fly anybody home.
Well,
I don't know, look at their financial statement. I don't know that he can.
That's an important point. This speaks to both the quality of Ron DeSantis and how little almost everybody else is trying at anything at all other than to just plain suck.
Yes. He's the only one with both a pro-Israel and an America First message. The only one. The only one. This doesn't have to be true. Other people could, Trump, Haley, they could be messaging like he is. They could be doing what he's doing, but they're not. So no, I'm not apologetic at all for pointing this out to you. Nor does it make me any profit whatsoever. I don't care about that. What I care about is the future for our kids and grandkids. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But this week, I mean, dude, the way he has behaved on the world stage and the way that he can stand there, whether it's Morning Joe or that Hamas simp for CBS. For those of you, did you know, Steve, that the media is controlled by 7 Jews I present that clip from our montage where the CBS Face the Nation, or whatever the hell their show's called now, is essentially just opening her mouth with Hamas talking points. The contrast between Trump and DeSantis right now is so stark that at this point, if he's not the guy... Now, you've been saying this for months. I have not said this. This is the first time I'm going to say this. Here's why when you've said this, I've not affirmed it or said it myself. Because having worked on a campaign, I do understand that is the primary conduit that people at first have with a candidate. And let's face it, the initial launch of the DeSantis campaign that was given as an access point to many of our people wasn't all that inspiring. Fair? I mean, I don't think it was the unmitigated disaster, but it was nowhere near up to what a candidate of this magnitude should be projecting. And so I did understand hesitancy to get on board when your initial access point to a guy as a national campaign is his campaign. We're beyond that now. We're at the stage now where the candidate is the campaign. And no, they had a weak statement on something in May. Nope. Total BS now. I'm calling it. Total BS now. You've never gone in and voted for a campaign. If you did, you'd have never voted for Donald Trump one damn time. Okay? You never voted for a campaign. You voted for a candidate. And so for the first time, I will now affirm what you have said for months, Todd. If this is not our guy for such a time as this is an indictment of us. We're just this blind and this lost as a culture. I mean, this is just beyond obvious at this point. This is the candidate we've always said we've wanted. This guy is the culmination of all the shows I grew up listening to, all the books I grew up reading, and now the shows that I do and the books that I write. He is. He's already governed successfully on a big stage. He managed to do something the entire U.S. federal government couldn't do. Bring hundreds of Americans home in less than a week and then not charge them for it or leave them stranded in Greece. He stands there in the gap, doesn't shriek or shirk. He neither diminishes nor lashes out. He is the alpha in the conversation. He dominates. No, I'm not taking it. That's not true. Gonna call BS. But he do it professionally. I've just never seen anything like this. Not in this century, at least. You know, I was a little kid, man, when Reagan was rising to prominence. But in this century, I've never seen anybody with this resume and this record who then at this kind of a moment, as a candidate, he's not even the president yet, as a candidate has risen to this level of occasion. Never seen anything like it. And given the lateness of the hour for us in the West in total, this very well may be our final chance to get our collective heads out of our asses. Get our heads out of our asses. See beyond the grift. And that's why I'm now going to actually get even more aggressive. You thought I was aggressive before? I'm going to get more so. This may be our last chance to put someone in power who will then use that power to turn back the tide. And it's demonstrated, proven, they know how to use it. Not just speak it, not just troll it, meme it, do it. We have to do it, guys. We have to do this now. Or the Boar Queen is right. Watch our futures end. We have to do this now. Now, it's going to burn some bridges, but I don't care. The future for my kids and grandkids, far more important to me than sitting at the cool kids table. I live in Iowa anyway. Who gives a rip? I already wasn't invited to the big mega events on the right anyway, so nothing will change. Has there ever been a presidential candidate, ever, who was not an incumbent in the history of this country, who at a moment of crisis exhibited this level of leadership? Not just in terms of the messaging, but doing stuff. Never seen anything like it. So before I thought, Todd, maybe you were a little premature, but now here on October 16th, I'm with you. If this isn't the guy, then this is really an indictment of us. We're just that lost. You know, it's my prayer that there will come a day that we won't have to talk about our friends over at Preborn anymore. And we're getting closer. We have made progress, like the smashing of the shibboleth of the dam known as Roe v. Wade, but we're not yet to that day. So thankfully, our friends at Preborn, though, unlike a lot of the national pro-life leadership, they were actually ready for a post-Roe world because they were already engaged in that kind of person-to-person, hand-to-hand spiritual combat when it comes to saving babies and their mommies. Just $28 is all it costs for an ultrasound. And over the years, 80% of the women who hear that ultrasound do not go through with killing their kid. Would you spend $28 on 80% odds to save a life? I know there's a lot of people in this audience that would do that. And so they confront these moms in crisis with the knowledge and the confirmation that you are carrying another human being. But they know that that's not where the battle ends. That's still a mom in crisis. Let's face it, if you're a woman in a secure and healthy relationship, you're probably not thinking of getting an abortion. It's women who aren't that are. And so they are there for those women. They're there for the mom too. Postnatal care, counseling even. All of that is also for free with tax-deductible donations from people like us. It's a worthy cause. The cause of life. Go to preborn.com/Steve. Make your donation today at preborn.com/Steve. Again, that's preborn.com/Steve. Or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby on your mobile phone. Pound 250, keyword baby on your mobile phone. All right, let's bring in our good friend Bob Vander Plaats from the Family Leader. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Doing really well. Good to see you.
So you allegedly have a trip to Israel here coming up, I'm guessing, right?
Friday, we're supposed to leave.
And where's that at right now?
Yeah, we have postponed it. So our trip, Steve, we're going to go into Jordan first and spend a few days touring Jordan and then crossing the Jordan River into the Holy Land. But we have postponed it just like a lot of other delegations have postponed their trips as well. We're hoping maybe May that this conflict will be over and that we can take our delegation to the Holy Land. It's always quite a trip.
So help people understand, because I think people would, it's obvious there's a war going on there. But if there was a localized conflict here in the U.S., given the size of our landmass, that would not necessarily mean it's not safe to travel to other places in the country, right? But for now, I've never been there before. I'm going to go next year or in 2025. Lord permitting, I'm going to go in 2025 with Pastor Jack Hibbs and his church out there at Chino Hills Calvary Chapel. Amy and I are going to go. First time we've been. Yeah. And by the way, I listened to Pastor Jack's message yesterday on what's happening in Israel right now. Absolutely incredible stuff. Okay. So I've never been. You've been several times. So whether you've been there or in my case, you've studied a lot of the history and the theology and everything involved, with the current events that we're seeing unfold, I think unless you're in those two camps, a lot of Americans maybe don't really understand how truncated everything in that country is. You're really talking about a nation state about the size of, I think in square miles, it's about the size of New Hampshire, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, you're exactly right. Matter of fact, I was talking to a guy the other day that actually is in Jerusalem, and he likened it to, say, 9/11. He said when 9/11 happened to the United States, it happened in New York City. He goes, now it shook the whole country. I mean, everybody paid attention. The TVs were on, gas prices went up. It shook the whole country, but in Sioux City, Iowa, where Darla and I were living at the time, we could still go out to, say, Applebee's, Burger King, whatever. I mean, whatever we wanted to do, we still could do. It was not going to interrupt our daily activity, other than we're going to pay more attention to what's happening, with this 9/11 thing. He said when this happens in Israel, because of the landmass that Steve just talked about, he said everybody hunkers down. Everybody's at war right now. Everybody's on high alert. And really the last thing they want to do, matter of fact, I consulted with him because Darla and I really still wanted to keep our tour dates. And the reason is, it's one thing to stand with Israel during this time. It's another thing to stand in Israel at this time. But he was saying, he goes, the last thing people really want, though, too, is say, now we got these American tourists. And they're closing off all kinds of borders. So you hear about the Gaza border to Egypt, the border from Gaza and Israel. But the other borders, the Palestinian border, say, into Bethlehem, into Judea, Samaria. Well, you got to be very, very careful right now about who is coming in and out. And so it would have just messed up the whole tour. So therefore, we did not go. That said, Steve, I don't know if you remember, the first time I went to Israel was back in 2014. This is when Hamas was firing rockets into Israel. Mm-hmm. And Obama came out and said, we should suspend all flights to Tel Aviv, or we recommend that people don't fly to Tel Aviv. And Rick Santorum at that time said to me, he said, how would you like to go to Israel? And I was like, I always wanted to go to Israel, but now? And then he said to me, he goes, it's one thing to stand with Israel, it's another thing to stand in Israel and be with Israel. And it was only about a 3-day journey, but we got put on high alert. Rick and I took shelter in a stairwell one time as the sirens went off. It's interesting, people in Jerusalem be going out for dinner, and they'd be driving around, all of a sudden the sirens go off, they'd all take cover. 10 minutes later, the all clear would come up, like, we're clear, the Iron Dome did its job, whatever it was. People went back to eat. They went back in their car, and they kept living their life. Because that's the big message they want to send, is we're going to continue to live our life. But even back then in 2014, what I think people need to understand about 2023, because we got briefed by the highest levels of government at that time. They said, remember, Hamas, Hezbollah, they're all backed by Iran. So right now, everybody's language is Hamas, 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 but don't forget about who's funding them. Who's the mastermind behind it? It's Iran. And they said, when your mission statement begins and ends with Israel being removed from the face of the earth, being off of the map, and that Israel's the little Satan and the United States is the big Satan, said it just removes all your negotiation power right there. And they're there, and they're raising their kids on the breast milk of hatred. And this one guy said to me, he said, to give you an example, said it would not be unlikely or unlike for a Hamas school to say, there's 12 Jews, we kill 9 of them, how many of them remain? As a math question. But you think, well, how ridiculous is that? But that's the ideology that they're fighting right now.
I heard Pastor Jack Hibbs say in his message yesterday, he's actually been watching foreign media, not our own media. See what they're saying over there. So he specifically mentioned Al Jazeera, Yemen, media throughout the Middle East. And I mean, they're showing their people Jewish babies' heads on bayonets as trophies and everything else.
Sure.
So it's a completely, what's funny is essentially what Jack said was our media, to some degree, Fox included, all of our major media is trying to strain themselves to come up to some form of moral equivalency at some point, right? So even Fox, which will give a very pro-Israeli slant until it comes time for the Israelis to actually act, and then, well, we must have an equivocal response. So what? I mean, the Israelis should go out there and rape just as many, the exact amount of people as Hamas raped. Okay, but what he is saying, what's funny is when you watch what Pastor Jack says, when you watch their media, they're bragging about the atrocities that you can go on even a lot of conservative Twitter right now. Let alone full on victimization, anti-colonial, anti-West left-wing Twitter, and claim that these things aren't really true. They're really Jewish plots of Zionist media. And Jack's like, what's funny is when you watch the other side, the media in the Muslim world, they're parading around these acts as trophies, as victories that we are claiming aren't really taking place.
What's taking place, I mean, my dad, who fought in World War II, he would just say, war is the worst. But when I took a look on the Jerusalem Post website, and they were showing some of the video, what's taking place with Hamas, with these kids, with others, I mean, I had to stop watching. I couldn't do it anymore. But I didn't do what Jack Hibbs did, and that is to watch foreign media. But I did watch CNN. And I saw an IDF military official on CNN saying, now remember, whether it's next week or next month or the next 6 months, remember what Hamas did. because they know that, okay, you might stand with us now, right away, because of what Hamas did. But 3 weeks from now, you're still going to stand with us. 6 weeks from now, you're still going to stand with us. 6 months from now, you're still going to stand with us. Or are you going to forget about what they did and what their purpose and their mission statement is to wipe you off the map? Are you still going to stand with us? Because basically they're calling their bluff, going, we're sure that Main Street media is going to turn against Israel here pretty quick because of the devastation that's taking place in Gaza right now. But they're saying they want to uproot terror at all costs right now.
I think I could sum it all up with this statement. And when I say sum it all up, I'm not talking about the history, the theology, the prophecy, the geopolitical backdrop of all of this. I mean the media narratives that about what the truth of each side's standing really is. I think I could sum it up with this statement. If Hamas and Hezbollah, if they laid down their arms right now, more people, Muslim, Jew, Christian alike in the region, would live. If the Israelis laid down their arms right now, far fewer people, Muslim, Jew, Christian alike, would live.
Without
I think
question.
that pretty much just sums up everything. And I don't. And I mean, I see people, some of my own colleagues in this industry, making some of these arguments, and I hate to go to an immediate, because we've been victimized by that well, you just automatically must be a racist, right? I mean, I've been called an anti-Semite at times in my career for saying Jesus is Lord. I'm like, I go to church on Sunday and literally worship a God who became a Jew. I think a Jew was God. Okay? I mean, how am I an anti-Semite? So I hate just throwing around these terms, but I'm trying to come up with how someone cannot possibly see that. And that is just patently obvious. Whether you think this is a prophetic Israel or not, and I understand Christians who look, and you know this better, being there more than, you've been there numerous times, I never have. But I know the demographics there. It's a very secular country. It's a very culturally liberal country. It's a very, very high abortion rates, very open parading of the rainbow jihad all throughout. One of the reasons why it's kind of ironic that if they were actually more true to their religion, they might not be as friendly to people like us going over there all the time. But since they've largely, as a people, abandoned much of it, they don't really see the distinctions and divisions that have kind of haunted us for centuries anymore, but just welcome all these people now. So I understand if you think there's no prophetic worth to this particular Israel or what have you, okay, I understand that position. I don't understand how then you go from there to, so it's totally okay to just that what Hamas has done here. It's totally okay to make women and children human shields for war, and then openly brag about it, and like their commanders do in their own media. What would possess you to think that is okay, regardless of any theological differences or distinctions at all? Isn't that just simple humanity?
It is. And matter of fact, when they take a look at it, they're looking for the word proportional response. We think it should be a proportional response. And I'm like, well, what the heck is a proportional response? Apparently you rape as many Muslims as they raped Israelis, I guess. You want to win this war, and even though you have advantages, you want to send them a message, yes, we do have advantage, you're not going to do this again. And so what it is, Israel, their IDF, they'll go in and they'll put leaflet drops down saying, we're going to bomb this facility, we're going to do this, vacate it, get out of it, but we know it's a Hamas breeding ground. What they'll do is they'll bring in the kids, the disabled, the elderly into that spot. And then what they'll do is they'll point the finger back to Israel and say, look what Israel's doing. And then our side, the media that you're just talking about, Steve, they buy into that. And they say, how in the world can Israel be right here? And my thinking is, take a look at what happened back to the Jews in World War II. What's a proportional response to that? I mean, I've also toured Auschwitz. I've toured Birkenau. What is a proportional response to that? And what they're trying to do is uproot evil, because there's a lot of people in the Gaza Strip that wish this was not happening. They just want to do their daily life. They just want to go about their business. They just want to go about raising their family, whatever. I get that. The fact is, they need to uproot this terrorist organization called Hamas and hiding behind Hamas and using human shields to do it. I think Israel has every right to defend itself. They should defend itself, and they should do at all costs get rid of this once and for all.
Final thing. Have you ever seen someone running for president who didn't currently hold the office, like ever, more effectively inject themselves into a crisis and completely reshape the messaging around that crisis the way a president would, advocate for policies the way a president would, and actually get results, like actively like govern and manage the crisis that they're not even elected president to govern or manage. I've never seen anything like what Ron DeSantis has done in the last week. Like ever. Like never seen it. Not this century anyway.
Well, Governor DeSantis, to his credit, he's very clear. I mean, on all the issues, but even on this issue, I mean, he gives great clarity in all of his interviews in regards to Israel's sovereignty, what their response should be, what the United States' role is. You see him when he's in a role like this is his natural habitat. This is his ability to lead at this point. But Steve, just as Governor DeSantis has been very effective at doing that, I thought President Trump unforced air at his own rally. I have no idea why he wanted to go there, especially now, the timing. If you want to air your differences with Netanyahu and what happened in taking out the Iranian general, maybe you want to do that at some point, but not then. And the last thing you want to do at that point is call a terrorist organization like Hezbollah or Hamas as being smart. So I saw basically a tale of two cities, one from the former president and the other one from Governor DeSantis.
Well, I mean, I'm at the point that the difference between the two guys is so stark that at this point, I just think if he's not the guy, then I think that's just on us. I just think we're just a lost culture at this point.
Well, you're all in for Governor DeSantis. We're all in.
This is why.
Yeah,
I didn't just randomly draw. These are. I'm not. I had reasons, and he's fulfilling them.
There's no doubt. I get that. What I want to be clear to your audience, we haven't endorsed yet. However, when you take a look at what has happened in Israel and other things, these have a way of injecting themselves into a presidential race, which brings everybody to a decision point sooner or later. And that's why these candidates now, Israel's going to be a big topic, especially at our Thanksgiving family forum. We're going to talk about the nation of Israel.
Really quick, breaking news. Gag order has been put on Donald Trump while you guys were talking.
You mean in the case in D.C., the election case? That honestly would be to his benefit.
Right.
I mean, it would be to his benefit to actually talk about issues people are concerned about rather than his own legal travails. I think that would actually be to his benefit. Just like I'm not shocked that his negatives went down after he got off Twitter, after he got banned off Twitter and people were exposed to it all the time.
But I think, Steve, if I have another word here, that's why I truly believe Iowa's wide open, and I believe this nomination process is wide open yet because of major issues that are injecting themselves into this race. People have a real decision to make coming up.
All right, we'll come back. Jordan Schachtel is going to join us. The latest on what's going on in Israel next. All right, back here with Hour 2 here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. And you can let us know what you think about what we think. Just email the show to do that, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. You can like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. And you also, if you love the podcast, we would love you to then leave us a 5-star review. And thank you to the thousands of you. We're approaching 10,000 of those. So keep them coming, please. Thank you to each and every one of you that have done that for us. And we would appreciate many more. And hit subscribe, or in the case of iTunes, follow, so that you can make sure that every time we do a new episode, it shows up in your feed every single time. And thanks to all of you that have done that too. Don't forget, we made a big announcement at the start of the program today. Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible study launching today. Several of you requested this, and we have put it together along with Dr. Jeremiah Johnston from Prestonwood Baptist in Dallas, Texas, Oxford educated theologian from the C.S. Lewis and Christian Thinker Society. He is phenomenal in this study. And I'm along for the ride. And I think you'll be very impressed with the quality of the teaching and the production value for Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. It's available now. You can buy the book, for example, at Amazon. And inside each book is a code that allows you to go online and either download or stream the videos that go along with each study for your either individual Bible study or your small group Bible study. Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study, launching today. Dr. Johnston will join us at the bottom of this hour to give us a more in-depth preview. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss who we're going to talk to and who we're going to talk to and what we're going to talk about here in just a moment. But first, a word about Patriot Mobile. They have been on the vanguard of the rise of the parallel economy, and it's not there yet. But thankfully, one place where it is fully realized is with a product that basically it's impossible to live without these days, and that's a mobile phone. Make the switch to America's only American mobile phone provider left. Once you do, you get an outstanding U.S.-based customer service team. That means you can understand them. And they make everything for you as seamless as possible. If you need to switch networks at any point in time, you need to switch carriers within their network, they can make that happen for you free of charge. When you go to make the switch, if you're a veteran or first responder, let them know. And they've got extra ways of saying thank you for your service. For the rest of us, you get a free activation with the offer code Steve when you go to patriotmobile.com/Steve. That's patriotmobile.com/Steve, or call 972-PATRIOT, and that's 972-PATRIOT. Well, Jordan Schachtel has been a fixture on this show for several years, most of the time speaking about issues dealing with national security and foreign policy. And of course, those issues are at the forefront at the moment with events unfolding in Israel as we speak. Jordan, it is good to have you back here on the show with us, brother. How are you?
Hey, Steve. Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
So, Jordan, before I get into questions, I want to give you just a few minutes here to go ahead and if you want to just give us an opening statement or an elevator assessment of what's transpiring here and why and where you think it goes from here.
Yeah, so 9 days ago, the country of Israel was attacked by a group of savages affiliated with Hamas, which is a Palestinian terrorist group that is, contrary to popular belief, unfortunately widely popular amongst the Palestinians who live in areas of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. They slaughtered upwards of 1,400 people. The death toll continues to get higher. And it was a very sophisticated, coordinated military operation that was most likely backed by several state sponsors. A lot of people are pointing to Iran, Turkey, and the nation of Qatar as, the longtime supporters, funders, armors of Hamas. And they slaughtered these people not because of some geopolitical situation, but because, from the very foundations of Hamas, their mission was to, annihilate not just Jews, but anyone associated with the nation of Israel, which, they associate with being a Jewish state. So they killed Jews, they killed Christians, they killed Muslims, just slaughtered people. And Israel has since been launching a series of pretty serious airstrikes in Gaza. And, they have this massive troop buildup now on the Gaza border, which is reported to be over 100,000 soldiers. The Israeli army is now well over 500,000 because so many Israelis have come home to serve their country, which is so commendable. I think it's amazing what is happening in Israel right now. They feel that call to duty. And, I've always said that a nation that doesn't have enough people willing to defend their country is really a nation that doesn't deserve to have its own sovereign borders. And I think what Israelis are doing are really showing that we prefer to keep our state, and it's so honorable. But right now, there's a buildup on the Gaza border A ground invasion has appeared to be imminent, but only really the top security officials in Israel and in the parliament really know exactly when or if they will invade. And right now, the Biden administration has said that it stood with Israel basically unapologetically, but the rhetoric is beginning to change thanks to lots of international pressure from not only Islamic states, but European states, from the broader left, from the anti-Israel activists in the Democratic Party, and they're now trying to stop Israel, in my view, from commencing a ground invasion into Gaza. There's rumors and reports coming out that President Biden is being, they're trying to send him to Israel because Israel would not be able to invade in the event of Biden, being physically present in the country. And so there's also a lot of U.S. delegations with, high-ranking senators who appear to have the same motives to try to stop Israel from fully defending itself. But we'll see what happens moving forward. I mean, I do hope that they stay true to the comments that Netanyahu said in the aftermath of the worst terrorist attack against Jews since the events of the Holocaust, that they will eliminate Hamas. And eliminating Hamas means completely decimating their operational capability, and they have not yet done so. And I don't want to trade positions of these Israeli commanders anytime soon, because they have a very difficult task ahead. But I hope that they follow through with the mission statement.
I've walked my audience through the theological history here before, so they're pretty well versed in it, and applied it to modern circumstances. The people identifying as Palestinians, and they're not all Muslims, they're not all, Hamas crazies, and every one of them's made in the image of God. Nevertheless, there is no such thing as a Palestinian people as a people group. These are folks from other Arab countries, a lot of them, a legacy like in Jordan, that were kicked out of those countries. And there's a reason why these Arab countries like Jordan and Egypt are closing their borders to them now. They don't want them back. Okay. And so I think a lot of people who have some rudimentary knowledge of the theological history behind all of this, and the name of Israel and this particular land and its theological significance, I think a lot of them think that these are like the carryovers of the people that Moses and Joshua and the Israelites fought 4,000 years ago, and they're not. Those people groups from the Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Hittites, they're gone. They're lost to history. They got wiped out. That was what God told the Israelites to do, was to remove them from history. This is a completely different people group. They have no long-standing claim to the land. Muhammad's never visited Israel. Allah took him there in a dream. All right. And so they're well versed in this. But I want to give them some backdrop in more contemporary exposition, Jordan. I think you can help with that. So let's start with this. Take us to 2005. All right. Why is that year significant when it comes to Hamas and the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, so Israelis had been living in the Gaza Strip, and they basically decided through poorly thought out left-wing governmental policies that in disengagement from Gaza, so having the Israeli army basically go to the Jewish families that lived in Gaza and said, we need to get out because, hopefully the Muslims and, the people identifying as Palestinians will accept us and make peace with us. And there was a huge disengagement from Gaza. And right after that, Hamas is elected, and, with a publicly displayed charter that says that their mission is to annihilate the Jews of Israel and take the entire country of Israel and basically exterminate its Jewish population. And ever since then, Hamas has been trying to achieve that mission. And what's interesting, you have all these international pundits speaking, but, they never really, a lot of people are talking about a so-called open air prison, and the idea that, there's an occupation in Gaza. There hasn't been an Israeli presence in Gaza, you're right, since 2005. So we're talking 18 years already.
So this is very important. I want to make sure our audience understands what you're laying out. Okay. In no way, shape, or form is this any form of occupied land. First of all, historically, these people have no claim to this land, number one. But number two, in this particular contemporary context, if we remove all of that theological, biblical narrative and history and just look at the contemporary, physical world in which we live, they have been permitted to operate as an autonomous state right there on Israel's doorstep, hold their own elections and elect their own local authorities and everything else since 2005, nearly 20 years.
Exactly. And a lot of people seem to forget or are ignorant of the fact that Gaza shares a border with Egypt, and Egypt reinforced that border to such a level that it's like a supermax security area on steroids. When Egypt got a little lax, one of the reasons why Egypt specifically doesn't want to bring people in Gaza into their country is that the one time they tried doing that not so long ago, the Sinai Peninsula quickly turned into a welcome destination for the Islamic State, and they started slaughtering the Bedouin Muslims of the Sinai Peninsula, and it freaked the Egyptians out. So they reinforced the border, and we speak about why the Muslim world won't take in the Palestinians, but specifically Egypt, who shares a border with them. They're really much terrified of the prospect of letting 2 million people into their country. So it's not just the state of Israel that is concerned with the situation in Gaza and the West Bank and has made so many attempts to make peace with their neighbors. It's so many instances of Arab countries who, they will never publicly admit it, but they're just scapegoating Israel for the situation because they don't want to take these people in. I mean, you talk about, revolutionary movements in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Kuwait. They tried to overthrow the Saudi monarchy. I mean, there's just so much that people that identify with this Palestinian movement, and that's why, I appreciate you educating your audience on the roots of the Palestinian movement, because it's not based on any type of, ethnic or cultural identity. It was essentially created as a movement to oppose the Zionist movement and the modern state of Israel. And it was, created basically by broader movements abroad and helped by the Soviet Union as kind of a buffer against the U.S. during the Cold War. So, this whole concept of what it means to be a Palestinian, when you finally, dig all the way through that rabbit hole, you come out thinking like, wow, okay, so I can understand why these people are so hell-bent on the destruction of Israel, because it's their very purpose from day one of their lives. And unfortunately, much of the Arab and Muslim world has either been indoctrinated into believing that, they're fighting some righteous cause, or will kind of look the other way because they don't want a Jewish state existing in the Holy Land and in the confines of the ancient land of Israel as well.
Why was this particular weekend chosen? So, according by Jewish tradition, holiday weekend. People are Sabbathing over a holiday. So you're away from maybe a lot of your technology. You're disconnected from people. You're winding down. You're relaxing. You're seeing family. Think of how we do it here in the States with a Thanksgiving or any kind of a holiday like that. And so this time period was specifically chosen by these folks with that in mind, to create terror so that this event moving forward for this generation of Israelis would no longer be looked at fondly or something to look forward to, but would come with, PTSD, tragedy. All right. That was done. This particular weekend was targeted very specifically, not randomly, correct?
Yeah, so it was the anniversary of, the surprise attack in the Yom Kippur War in 1973.
Yeah.
And it was also, it also happened, they strategically were well-versed in the reality that, Jews were celebrating the holiday of Sukkot, in addition to it being, I think it was at the end of Shabbat, which is, kind of when observant Jews are offline. And there's also a political situation that was going on in Israel in which the country was deeply divided over the judiciary. And it seemed that the military had taken a pretty lax posture and, had awarded a lot of its best soldiers who were, who happened to be observant Jews the day off all at the same time. So it was just, a catastrophic failure of preparation as well. It never should have happened. And I'm sure that they will get to the bottom of that once this operation is over. But yeah, it goes to show that, these are the kind of things that, are also threatened by countries that are so divided over stuff that, there's internal threats as well as external threats. And while, the U.S. probably can't be toppled by a foreign force, I think, ever, similar to Israel, like when the internal dynamics get so messy, your sovereignty is put at risk too.
No, that's what happened with Rome. It went from a citizenship test to become an officer or even a member of the Roman legion to the empire is so vast, the bureaucracy is so complicated that just about it, we just need anybody to put on a uniform. And one day the Visigoths come over the wall and it's a family reunion. A lot of people switch uniforms and help the barbarians sack the city because they have more in common with the culture that's invading than the culture whose uniform they're wearing. So there's nothing new under the sun where that stuff is concerned. Can you explain to our audience? So we're hearing of this proportional response. I don't know what that means. Does that mean that Israelis should go out and rape the exact same amount of Muslim women that Hamas did? I have no idea what that even means. But can you discuss how that is, in this sort of conflict, virtually impossible? You kind of alluded to the needle that must be thread by the Israeli high command here. My understanding is much of Hamas is stationed in bunkers underneath schools, mosques, buildings that look like they're a part of civil society, and that is on purpose. This religion has no compunction or reservation at all about using women and children as human shields. Hey, I lose a wife, I've got 7 more. I lose a kid, I'll make another kid with the other 7 wives, and that kid, was just welcomed by Allah into heaven as a hero anyway. So it's all good. And they literally pay out money to martyrs, right? These are things I think people don't understand here in this part of the world, that there's not like some battlefield you're going to go meet them on, that this is really ingrained into the culture at the most micro levels in Gaza.
Yeah. It's one thing when you look at the history of warfare and successful guerrilla tactics. It's one thing to use guerrilla tactics to overcome a qualitatively superior adversary. But what Hamas is doing is they're basically acting like subhuman barbarians and savages and using their own people as human shields in order to protect themselves. From harm.
And they openly say this. If you watch their interviews on Qatari television, by the way, much of the Hamas leadership has been on Qatari TV doing it's bizarre. They're doing Brian Kilmeade, Fox and Friends kind of interviews, but it's just all about how they're killing Jews and raping women. But it's the exact same kind of setting. They openly say this on Qatar. What we're saying here is not some hidden knowledge. They openly will say, we do use women and children this way, and they're happy to oblige.
Yeah, they consider them martyrs for their cause, and that it's amazing to see that there's been so many instances. For people who have, such as yourself and Aaron and Todd, who are so familiar with the dynamics of the Arab-Israeli situation, specifically when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians, Hamas has been doing this for so long. They've been using UN buildings, schools, hospitals, and it's not just that these are one-off incidents. These happen every single time. And the Israelis have to go above and beyond to try to mitigate the civilian casualties. But the reality that we're facing is that, it's either, you have to defend your sovereignty and your people, and your people need to take priority over what Hamas is doing. And in addition to that, Hamas, because of their tactics, they are responsible for the deaths of civilians in Gaza. And if Hamas wants to avoid further casualties of war, they should unconditionally surrender to Israel, and then we can have peace. But, this idea that I'm seeing on social media where it's just like, both sides have to compromise. By the way, and they're saying this, 1 week after a ruthless slaughter that was filmed on GoPros. And, this.
And of course, Hamas is not calling for any compromise. That's what's ironic. Yes.
The incredible, it's like depressing to see the indifference that people are just like, it's the Muslims and Jews fighting each other again. Like the naivete, especially among our libertarian friends who are just become completely batshit, like crazy. It's so shocking to me and so ignorant. But, there is so much history. Pick any day in any conflict between Israel and Hamas, and I'm sure you can find something, Hamas weaponry found in a kindergarten or in a UN school. It goes on. And Israel is every military, their mission is to break stuff and kill the bad guy. And yet, they're taking so many, I think, sacrificial precautions to a fault. And yet still, of course, the civilian casualty count is going to be high because of Hamas's tactics. But again, Hamas is totally responsible for this. And I think it's ironic when you see people coming from these countries where, like I have all these like Russian people, telling me that, they can mediate or whatnot. And, even the Biden administration, I mean, the reality of war is that it's going to get really ugly. But the just side needs to defend its own people, and that's the bottom line. And I think, as you said earlier, we value the life of all human beings, and that's super important to always remember that every human life is meaningful, and it's really up to the Israeli leadership to destroy Hamas so that hopefully a new regime in Gaza can value human life more and protect that life and be actual partners for a lasting peace. I mean, we've seen it happen in the Arab world with the Abraham Accords. It's not impossible for the Arabs and Israelis to make peace, but it's very difficult to make peace with an enemy who wants to genocide you. And we saw, like, there's no longer a debate over Hamas's intentions. That's the thing. Like, we've saw it. Their fighters strapped GoPros to their heads while they were slaughtering people, and yet you still have these like people affiliated with these major YouTube shows, like Tim Pool's people, who are all saying like, oh, let's analyze the blood splatter. Like, it's insane what I'm seeing, and it's hard for me to categorize this as anything other than just like nasty Jew hatred. And like, I just don't, when the jihadis are putting the cameras on their heads, like I don't know what else to tell these people. Like, I can't say that any of their arguments are in good faith anymore. Like, Israel just needs to do what it needs to do to defend itself, and like, these people can just continue to cry about it and continue to do whatever they're doing and act in this ridiculous anti-human fashion. But at least what I'm grateful for today, as a Jew in America who is publicly so supportive of the state of Israel, which I think is a moral, humane country, is that they have an amazing army that is just going to, in my view, mop the floor with Hamas. And I think it's going to be interesting to see all these people who are, on their high horse now, what they're going to be saying in a couple months when, they had all these ambitions about, the Palestinian movement taking back Israel. I'd like to see what they're going to say, how that energy has changed in a couple months.
Jordan, thank you very much, brother, for being with us. Appreciate you, as always. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Take care. Brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. If you struggle with chronic pain from time to time, that's pain from too much inflammation in the body. That's why if there's a possibility that you can find a drug-free anti-inflammatory, take advantage of it, because that means it doesn't tax other organs and systems in the body to use. Now, it may not be possible for you, but we're 70% confident that Relief Factor is the answer. Why that number? Because over the years, 70% of the people who try Relief Factor end up sticking around because of the results they see in as soon as 3 weeks or less with the 3-week quick start. You can try it now for just $20 for 3 weeks and see if you don't see a major difference in your pain tolerance and pain level in just 3 weeks or less when you go to relieffactor.com. What do you got to lose for $20? Relieffactor.com is where you want to go, or you can call them at 800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF, or relieffactor.com. Reaction to the conversation we just had with Jordan.
You know, we've heard a lot about, for years now, things like hate speech, microaggressions, disinformation. And we've talked on the show that the point ultimately is God killer stuff. They don't just hate our ideas, they hate us fundamentally. The same is true over there. That's why you have universities full of gay leftists ultimately supporting somebody like Hamas. Well, it seems crazy, but they are the same people ultimately. The mere existence of a Jew is a microaggression.
They put this in writing all the time, and they have for 1,500 years.
That's why it's in no way should it be a laugh track when you say, the Babylon Bee does a great job at satire, but it's no laughing matter. The leftists on universities and Hamas have the exact same people. There's no diversity that they believe in. None. They want to exterminate the other. Period.
Aaron?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that video circulating from the University of Washington on Friday at this pro-terrorist rally that broke out. The woman on the bullhorn just flat out said the only solution, intifada revolution. It's basically calling for genocide. That's what that is. That's happening all around the fruited plain. Fundamentally, we are up against, if you are in the camp that finds itself just outraged and horrified, rightly, by what you saw, and you don't believe it's some sort of massive propaganda campaign like so many on the right are eager to point out. You're up against, on one side, intifada, only solution, intifada revolution. And on the other side, well, we need to start bombing Iran like yesterday. And in between somewhere, you've got, as Jordan was talking about, let's analyze the charred remains of a baby and analyze the blood splatter to try to prove that this is all just Photoshop AI propaganda. We talked a lot about this last week. This is an environment where truth is just snuffed out, where it's not desired, seemingly, in very many places. We have to resist that. And it's becoming increasingly hard to do so.
It's impossible to do so, ultimately, without a biblical worldview.
Yeah.
Ultimately. People are still taking a risk, even in Let's Go Brandon economy, with starting their own business. And if that's you want to talk to our friends over at collective.com. It was built specifically for businesses of one that are making over $60,000 a year in profit. Collective handles, if that's you, can handle all of your back office work so you can focus on your passion, not all the paperwork. And Collective is kind of a one size fits all, or all-in-one, I should say, financial solution for businesses of one, whether that's business formation and compliance, paperwork, taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, even payroll. Plus, if you're an LLC, Collective can retroactively elect your S-Corp tax status back to July 1, which could save you thousands of dollars on your 2023 taxes. In fact, Collective members save an average of about $10,000 per year on taxes within this structure, which means a Collective membership pays for itself within just a few months, and it's also 100% tax deductible. So check out Collective today, collective.com/Steve. Do so before October 31st to potentially save thousands of dollars on your 23 taxes. And to sweeten the deal, we're going to throw in an extra $100 off when you use my link. That's collective.com/Steve. That's my link. Collective.com/Steve. Get $100 off there. But make sure you take advantage of this before October 31 to save maybe thousands of dollars on your 23 taxes at collective.com/Steve. Well, in case you missed it at the top of today's show, we made a big announcement, and it is this.
For years without measure, that's all there ever was. Heaven and hell. Armed enemy camps in complete opposition. That is until you were created.
He's called the Great Red Dragon. He's called the devil, which simply means adversary. He's called Satan. He's called also the one who deceives the whole world, the ancient serpent.
And we began our forever mission to destroy you. He made you in his image, but we remade you in ours.
When I think that my kids will touch their phone 2,000 times today, they'll see 10,000 media messages in one day, so many of them so draped with lies. Behind all those lies, we see that Satan is the one who deceives the whole world.
Our plan is to hurt him, to punish him, and we do that by destroying what he loves, which is you.
We want to bring him out of the shadows. We want him to be known and to be seen so people see him for whom he really is. And then we're going to wreck your worldview a little bit as well, but in order to feel more like a victor instead of a victim. And so we're going to equip you to do that. Everything you've ever wanted to know about the enemy, and more importantly, how weak of an opponent he actually is. Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible study. Available now, Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible study, a 6-week Bible study. You can order it right now at Amazon.com. Order it at Amazon.com. Included in each book is a code that allows you to go to the NefariousBibleStudy.com website, and you can either download or stream the video for every chapter for either your own Bible study or your small group Bible study there. And there's places for individual notes and individual questions. So if you're doing this in a small group setting, you're going to want to have everybody have their own copy or couples sharing a copy. You can order it right now at Amazon.com, a Nefarious Bible study. Know Thy Enemy is the title. A Nefarious Bible study, the subtitle. Order it at Amazon.com right now. And the guy who does the heavy lifting in this study joins us now. Theologian and okay dude overall, Dr. Jeremiah Johnston. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Steve, it's great to be back on your show. And, you know, you and I have been working together since, I don't know, my triplets were born 7 years ago. And we've done all kinds of unique projects together, War of Worldviews. We've talked about a lot of issues. But let me tell you, I want everyone who's watching and listening to the program, there is not a more important work that you and I have done together, in my opinion, than this Bible study, Know Thy Enemy. And I do believe God is providential. I believe he's in total control. Steve, you know that we've always pegged today as the release date for our new 6-week Bible study, Know Thy Enemy, where we can equip Christians not to live in fear of evil. But little did we know that evil would rear its ugly head with demonized Hamas. Mm-hmm. And Steve, I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of good friends. And I mean, these are smart people. These are good people, but they're just they're restless right now. They're afraid. I mean, I'm getting texts like, I'm just afraid with what's going on in the world. Friends, we need to be reminded that unbelief fears Satan as a lion, but in the great words of William Gurnall, Christian in Complete Armor, faith treads upon him as a worm. And so Steve and I want to equip you. We've co-authored this Bible study, and I love how it's been laid out by our team. And we've got to give a shout out to 110 Pictures, our
Absolutely.
Dear friend Jeremy Gant.
Yep.
You know, Steve, I've now done 5 Bible studies. I have never been on a set like you and I were on where we filmed the teaching segments. And so this Bible study is exegetical. What does that mean? We take the Word of God and we look at what the Word of God says about evil in the world, Satan, how we have nothing to fear. But then the final 3 weeks guide us by the hand through our complete armor in Christ and total victory. And here's what I want people to know today when we look at Hamas, when we look at evil, Hezbollah, when we look at all the uncertainties, evil had a beginning. And as you'll learn in our study, evil will come to an end.
Amen. And you mentioned Jeremy Grant and the team at 110 Pictures. This entire thing was their brainchild. They came to me with the idea about it several months ago, and then I suckered you into being a part of it as well. And the production value of this project, I will say our filmmakers, when we showed it to them, when we showed it to Carrie and Chuck and our film production team, for Nefarious, they were blown away by the production quality here. And it's very similar to the movie. The meat of the movie is a conversation that takes place between an atheist and a demon. And the meat of this study is a conversation here, but this is the contrast. Now the conversation is between a Christian and a theologian. And there's probably never been a more important time in the history of American culture.
That's right.
For the church to come to grips with the acknowledgement of an unseen realm of spiritual warfare, of the existence, the objective existence of evil, and especially the reminder of that with the events that transpired 9 days ago in Israel. And we're going to get into, obviously we don't get into these specific issues because of production time. We didn't know they were going to happen. But the very elements that lead to these kinds of stories where spiritual warfare comes into the natural realm and leaves the unseen realm, and now we can actually see what it looks like when it takes place in the natural world, we do get into all of those things.
That's exactly right. And I want to just remind you of what C.S. Lewis, that great thinker of the 20th century, said. He said there's two equal and opposite errors when we talk about demons or Satan or evil. And this is Lewis now. He said one is to ignore their existence altogether. The second is to have this kind of weird, odd, unhealthy fascination with it. And Lewis actually wrote that in the prologue to his famous book. But by the way, Steve, Tolkien was not happy about this. He dedicated the book to Tolkien. Little did Tolkien know it would make C.S. Lewis a wartime celebrity in America. He wrote that in the prologue of Screwtape Letters. And so I want to encourage believers today and seekers as well, people that are wondering, where do I turn for truth right now? Because I don't care what the latest massacre is, what the latest evil that we see in the world. The question is always the same. And Steve, you're looking at a guy, like you, I've been asked 40,000 questions. And so many of those questions are, is there really hope? And what I love about this Bible study is we give people hope, because as believers in Jesus Christ, as men and women who stand on the authoritative Word of God that's full of, let me tell you, 7,487 promises, we can stand in victory right now. But we've got to spread hope right now. And we do that not because we're talented or we're so educated. We do that because we know the battle has already been won. As the great Warren Wiersbe once said, the Christian life is not a playground, it's a battleground. And Steve, what I love about your program, what I love about your audience, you guys are not in retreat. No armor is given for the backside, if you know what I mean. When we study, and you and I point this out in our dialogue, and it's what's really cool about this, Steve offers his expert cultural commentary, and then he asks me questions and prompts me, hey, what does the Bible say about what we see here or there or this current event in culture? And we just bat the ball back and forth, Steve. And I know that when people watch this, they're going to be able to see evil more clearly, but they're also going to see how we can overcome it. And I want to keep saying this. Evil had a beginning. We get into this, and evil will have an end.
I like the fact that we start at the end.
That's right.
Because one thing I do fear is if we're going to finally acknowledge the objective force of evil at work in the world and the unseen realm, and we're gonna acknowledge it, Jeremiah, because of how overwhelming the evidence is that it appears, at least into our untrained eyes, in the physical, it appears to be at an advantage. It appears to be mounting.
Right.
So my fear, though, is that we will then acknowledge it out of that fear. And will remain in that fear of it, rather than in the confidence of the maker of heaven and earth, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And so I love the fact that we don't play up the ominous aspects of this, but we use this as a backdrop of saying what we're seeing happen right now in our culture is an excellent opportunity for God to truly demonstrate his glory and his power yet again. So therefore, we need not be afraid.
Well, and I want to make this clear, Steve, as you know, we're both dads. I have a 14-year-old daughter and I have an 11-year-old son. You better believe I'm going to be taking them through Nefarious, because guess what? They're asking me all the questions right now. They're seeing it on the internet. They're seeing it on the news. And so what's really cool is, as a dad, I can walk them through. I love this. Know how to fight evil. I just love how this is laid out. And what I like is every single week of the Bible study, it always starts with where the Bible meets life. And again, this is, again, impacted by the conversations you and I are having, the incredible clips from Nefarious, but then we go through a text. So this week is Ephesians 6:18 through 20, but then here's where I can fill it out with Lily and Justin, and we can actually talk about how we can unmask evil around us and how we have nothing to be afraid of. And I want to keep saying that Jesus, the thing Jesus said more than anything else, and I'm a gospel scholar, so I know a thing or two about what the gospels actually say. The one command Jesus gave was, do not fear. Do not fear. Do not fear. Don't be afraid. He doesn't stand in fear of Satan, nor should we. But let me tell you this, we are the people who bring hope. And a Christian in complete armor can confront evil. And let me tell you, part of confronting evil isn't some kind of weird deliverance thing. Let me make this very clear. It's destroying the strongholds of antichrist ideas that are so at work in our world. When we look at worldview, when we look at the fact that, Steve, I often say, ideas have consequences, bad ideas have victims. And this is a war of worldview that we're seeing playing out in its latest iteration with Hamas. We see it playing out in the culture around us, and I'm tired of Christians living in fear, and that's why I'm very happy to get on this program with you and tell every Christian I know. And let me talk to the dads out there. Steve, can I just say something to the dads real quick, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Jonathan Edwards said, and dads, just listen to me, if you're a dad or a granddad, if you're a surrogate dad, you are the pastor of your home. Did you hear what I just said? Not mom, not anyone else. And listen, my wife is the CEO of our family, but she knows I'm the pastor of our home. It's on me. Jonathan Edwards said every family is a little church and the pastor is the dad. And so I have to be articulating what's going on in culture as a dad that cares about my kids. I have to be taking them through scripture. I have to be letting them know, yeah, evil's real, but we confront it in the power of Jesus' name.
Amen to that, for sure. Last thing. You and I, when we filmed this, we filmed these videos in one day. I think they were all filmed in one take, actually, all unscripted. And we had a large...
That's just because you're so awesome, Steve.
Well, or we mailed it in, one of the two, maybe a little bit of both. But what I really enjoyed was hearing from, when you film these kinds of things, it requires ancillary support, makeup, production, camera. And you can't, it's just, especially in LA when you're filming this, the odds everybody that comes in and does this is going to be a believer are not high. Okay?
Right.
It was fascinating to see how interested the entire crew was, regardless of belief system, and what you and I were discussing and filming that people are going to see when they get the video here for the Nefarious Bible study. I mean, the crew was very intrigued and interested into the conversations that we were having.
And that was unique. In fact, we had 6 cameras, y'all. And I say y'all because I'm from Texas, where God has a second home. We had 6 cameras on this set. We had 25 crew. 110 Pictures did an amazing job. This is something you would not be embarrassed to have friends over. Start a community group, start a Bible study. Steve, just minutes before I came on your program live, I got an email from one of my brothers in Christ. He's like, I'm taking my whole company through this Bible study right now.
Wow.
Not his church Bible study. He's taking his company through the Bible study. He's seen the trailer. And so there are a lot of people out there, and this is your opportunity to step up and step out in leadership. And the more I know about my faith, the more I know about who I'm in Christ, the less I'm afraid of Satan. And listen, he's already defeated because of the cross. Colossians said that Jesus made a public spectacle of Satan in his victory over Satan on the cross. And we have too many Christians on retreat. We need to think about Jude chapter 3. victory. And Steve, I know this isn't a Christian show, but I appreciate you having my Christian perspective on, and I appreciate what a great Christian thinker you are. Jude 3 says, epigenizomai in Greek. We've got to continue to attack. And so I pray that every believer gets this Bible study, get it in the hands of your pastors right now. Get it in the hands of your priest. Get it in the hands of people that are having questions, that are just living in fear, like some of my friends who are texting me, and then walk them through it, walk your family through it, and then start living in the freedom that victory in Christ gives us.
Great stuff, Jeremiah. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Hey, love you, man. Great partnering with you on this.
You got it, man. Likewise. Take care. God bless.
Yes.
Available now over at Amazon, Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. You purchase the book for the Bible study there, written by Jeremiah and I. And then each book has a code that gives you access to the Nefarious Bible Study website, where you can download and stream the videos that you can watch either for yourself or your small group. Again, Know Thy Enemy is the name of the Bible study, a Nefarious Bible Study, available, launching today at Amazon.com. Any final thoughts, guys?
Well, to your point about the victory's already at hand, but listen, this is not a new conversation. What is believed to be the oldest book written down in the Bible? Job.
Yeah.
That same back and forth is going on. Evil and its place in the world. We actually have the additional information now that the victory is at hand, but this is the conversation of our faith from beginning to end.
Amen. We're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you on Wednesday with a special evergreen. No show tomorrow. Special evergreen on Wednesday. Until then, John 3:17.